Welcome to Simply English, an educational channel.
All right, ready to unlock some serious English-speaking confidence?
I'm all for it.
We're going deep with a conversation between Sarah, a seasoned English teacher, and John, who went from language learner to fluent speaker. It's like getting the best of both worlds, teacher wisdom and real-world experience.
Yeah, I always find it super helpful to hear how someone actually put the advice into action,
That's phenomenal.
So John starts off talking about his journey, like 5 years ago. He wanted to open up more career opportunities. But the biggest thing holding him back at first, he says, was this fear of making mistakes.
Oh, I think we've all been there at some point, feeling like we're going to sound ridiculous or people will judge us.
Totally. But John actually made this conscious decision to shift his perspective.
Okay.
Like instead of looking at mistakes as failures, he started seeing them as these valuable learning experiences.
Interesting.
Yeah. He even went so far as to find a language partner, someone he felt totally comfortable practicing with.
That's a great idea. Having that safe space to experiment and learn from those mistakes without that fear of judgment. Did he have any tips for finding the right partner?
He mentioned that online communities and language exchange apps were super useful.
Okay.
It's a great way to connect with other learners who are in the same boat as you.
Yeah.
But Sarah actually suggested something that might sound a little out there at first. Talking to yourself in English.
Wait, really? Talking to yourself. I gotta admit, that sounds a little strange.
It might feel a bit awkward at the beginning, but think about it. It's like the ultimate judgment-free zone. You can practice different sentence structures, experiment with phrases, and just let your thoughts flow in English without worrying what anyone else thinks.
I see what you mean. So like describing your day, planning out your to-do list, all in English. I can see how that would help you get more comfortable with the sounds and the flow of the language.
Absolutely. And you know what else John did? He started recording himself speaking and listening back.
That's a really good idea. Kind of like self-assessment, right?
Exactly. By listening objectively, you can pinpoint areas where your pronunciation might be off or where your grammar needs a little work. He also came across this technique called shadowing,
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
which is a fantastic way to work on your pronunciation.
But how does it work exactly?
It's actually pretty simple. You listen to a native English speaker, like from a podcast or a video,
Right.
and then you just repeat what they said, trying to mimic their pronunciation and intonation as closely as you can.
I guess it's kind of like learning a song. You listen and repeat until you can sing it perfectly. Did he find it helpful?
He said it felt really weird at first, but with consistent practice, it really helped him improve his fluency. Because shadowing forces your brain to process and reproduce sounds in a more natural way. It kind of trains those mouth muscles to move correctly.
Wow. I can definitely see how that would be way more effective than just reading pronunciation rules in a textbook. So, did they talk about anything else that helped John improve?
Yes. One thing that stood out was his focus on learning phrases and idioms
Interesting.
instead of just memorizing individual words.
That's a great tip because it's much more natural and reflects how native speakers actually communicate, right?
Exactly.
Did he have any examples?
He didn't give specific examples, but think about phrases like kick the bucket or piece of cake.
Right, right.
They have a meaning that goes beyond just the individual words.
Yeah.
And they add color and fluency to your speech.
It's like learning the secret code of the language, those little nuances. So, was there anything specific he did to stay motivated throughout this whole learning process?
Oh, absolutely. John was big on setting small, achievable milestones for himself.
So, instead of getting overwhelmed by this big, daunting goal of becoming fluent, he broke it down into smaller steps.
Yeah.
What were some of his milestones?
Things like being able to have a 5-minute conversation in English without feeling completely lost, or understanding a podcast without needing subtitles.
Love that. Celebrating those small wins can be really motivating, right?
Absolutely. They give you tangible proof that you're actually making progress.
Yeah.
John even mentioned the feeling of accomplishment he got from just being able to order food confidently at a restaurant.
Yes.
It was like a real-world victory.
I can definitely relate to that feeling of satisfaction when you realize you can navigate those everyday situations in another language. It's a huge confidence booster.
Speaking of confidence, John had this important realization along the way.
Okay.
Native speakers don't expect you to be perfect. They actually appreciate the effort you're putting in.
That's so true. I think sometimes we put so much pressure on ourselves to speak perfectly, but in reality, most people are just happy to communicate.
Right. And even native speakers make mistakes. It's about the willingness to communicate, not about flawless grammar or a perfect accent.
So what did John do to manage those like pre-conversation jitters, when the pressure starts to build?
He actually used mindfulness techniques.
Oh,
He would focus on his breathing, try to calm his nerves, and just be present in the moment.
that's really interesting. It's like applying the principles of mindfulness to language learning. Did Sarah have any other insights on this topic?
She really stressed the importance of creating a supportive learning environment for yourself.
Okay.
Setting realistic goals, surrounding yourself with positive people, and remembering to celebrate your achievements. And she also echoed John's suggestion about recording yourself, not just for self-assessment, but also as a way to track your progress and see how far you've come.
It's almost like having a language learning journal, but with audio recordings instead of written entries.
Exactly. You can actually hear your pronunciation improving, your vocabulary expanding, and your confidence growing over time. It's a powerful reminder that you're on the right track. So before we move on to the next part of John and Sarah's conversation,
Yeah.
I want you to think about your own English-speaking aspirations. What are those specific situations where you'd love to feel more confident and fluent? Keep those goals in mind as we continue our deep dive.
Welcome back. I'm really curious to hear what else John and Sarah talked about. They've already shared some really useful tips.
Yeah.
Did they get into any specific resources or techniques for actually learning phrases and idioms?
John mentioned using flashcards
Okay.
and spaced repetition software
Right.
to help him memorize those new phrases. But Sarah actually had an interesting perspective on this.
Okay.
She said that while rote memorization can be helpful, it's even more effective to try and understand the context and cultural nuances
Oh, I see.
behind these expressions.
So not just learning the words themselves, but really grasping the meaning and how native speakers use them in everyday conversations.
Exactly. She suggested looking for examples of idioms and phrases in movies, TV shows, books, that sort of thing.
Okay.
So that way you see them being used naturally,
Yeah.
and get a feel for the subtle nuances.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like learning the slang or colloquialisms of a new culture.
Yeah.
You have to really immerse yourself in the language to fully understand it. Did they talk about anything else related to fluency?
John actually asked Sarah what she considered the most important piece of advice for anyone on this language learning journey. And her answer was super simple, but really profound.
Okay.
Enjoy the process.
It's so easy to get caught up in that end goal that we forget to appreciate the journey itself.
Did she elaborate on what she meant by that?
She said that learning a language shouldn't feel like a chore.
Right.
It should be an adventure, a chance to explore new cultures, connect with people from different backgrounds.
I like that.
She even suggested things like watching your favorite shows in English with subtitles or playing language learning games.
I love that idea. It's about finding ways to make language learning a part of your daily life,
Yes.
rather than something you only do in a classroom setting. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you know what? That ties back to what we were talking about earlier with consistency. When you're enjoying the process,
Yeah.
it's so much easier to make time for that regular practice.
Right. But even when you love learning a language, I think there are bound to be challenges.
Oh, yeah.
Those moments where you feel stuck or you get frustrated. Did John and Sarah touch on that at all?
Oh, absolutely. John was really honest about the fact that there were times when he felt like giving up. He said there were these plateaus where he didn't seem to be making any progress no matter how much he practiced.
It's reassuring to hear that even someone who achieved fluency went through those struggles, right? What advice did they have for overcoming those hurdles?
Sarah really emphasized the importance of having a support system.
Okay.
Whether it's a language partner, a teacher, a community of fellow learners,
Yeah.
having people who understand your challenges and can offer that encouragement can make a world of difference.
It's like having a cheering squad for your language learning journey.
Right. They can celebrate your wins with you
Yes.
and help you pick yourself up when you stumble.
Exactly. And John added that it's also important to remember why you started learning English in the first place.
Yes.
What are your goals? What do you hope to achieve by becoming more fluent?
Absolutely.
Reconnecting with that sense of purpose can be a powerful motivator when you're feeling discouraged. Did they have any other tips for staying motivated?
John mentioned that visualizing his goals helped him stay focused.
Oh, interesting.
Like he would imagine himself having conversations with native speakers, traveling to English-speaking countries, using his language skills in his career, that sort of thing.
That's a great strategy. By creating that vivid mental picture of what you want to achieve,
Yeah,
it's like you're more likely to stay committed to the process.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And Sarah added that it's important to celebrate your progress along the way. Don't wait until you reach fluency to acknowledge how far you've come. Even small victories, like being able to understand a new word or phrase, are worth celebrating.
That's so true. By focusing on those small wins,
Yeah,
you can maintain that sense of accomplishment and keep your motivation high. So it sounds like the key to achieving fluency is really this combination of effective strategies, a positive mindset,
yes,
and a supportive environment.
exactly. And as John and Sarah wrap up their conversation, they emphasize that fluency isn't something that happens overnight.
Right.
It's a journey that requires dedication,
Okay.
perseverance, and a willingness to embrace those ups and downs of the learning process.
But their stories show that it's a journey worth taking.
Absolutely.
And with the right tools and mindset, anyone can achieve their English-speaking goals.
What stands out to you the most from this part of their discussion?
Yeah.
Before we move on to the final part of this deep dive, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
We're back for the final part of this conversation with Sarah and John about speaking English with more confidence and fluency.
Yeah, it's been so inspiring to hear John's journey and Sarah's insights.
It really has.
What really stood out to me was their emphasis on making language learning, enjoyable. It shouldn't feel like a chore or a burden.
It's like anything else you want to get good at. If you find ways to make it fun and engaging, you're more likely to stick with it.
Absolutely. And that goes back to consistency,
Yeah.
which is one of the key ingredients, for success in language learning.
Definitely. Did you have any specific takeaways from their discussion about finding joy in the process? I really loved Sarah's suggestions about, incorporating English into your daily life in ways that feel more natural and enjoyable, like watching movies or TV shows in English with subtitles, or even just listening to music and trying to sing along.
Those are great ways to kind of immerse yourself in the language without even realizing you're studying.
Right.
John mentioned that he started listening to English language podcasts while he was commuting or working out.
It's like sneaking in some extra practice without having to set aside, dedicated study time.
Exactly. And it's something you can easily fit into your existing routine.
For sure. Joan also talked about the importance of finding a language learning community or a partner to practice with. Having someone to share those struggles and successes with can make a huge difference.
Absolutely.
Did they offer any advice for finding the right community or partner?
Sarah suggested checking out online forums,
Okay.
social media groups, or even like local language exchange meetups.
Right.
There are so many options out there. It's just a matter of finding something that fits your, interests and learning style.
It sounds like the key is to find ways to make language learning a social and interactive experience rather than something you do in isolation.
Exactly. And both Sarah and John really emphasize the importance of celebrating your progress along the way, no matter how small.
Did they have any specific tips for acknowledging those milestones and staying motivated?
John suggested keeping a language learning journal where you can track your progress and write down, new words or phrases you've learned.
That's a great idea, like a tangible record of your journey.
Yeah.
A reminder of how far you've come.
Exactly. And Sarah recommended rewarding yourself for reaching milestones.
Okay.
Whether it's watching an episode of your favorite show in English or like treating yourself to a nice meal at a restaurant where you can practice your speaking skills.
I love that. It's all about finding those little ways to make the process more enjoyable and rewarding so you're more likely to stay committed to your goals.
For sure. As we wrap up this deep dive into John and Sarah's conversation, I think the biggest takeaway is that learning a new language is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, moments of frustration,
Yeah.
and times when you feel like giving up.
But as John's story shows us, with the right mindset, strategies, and support, anyone can achieve fluency. It's about embracing the process, finding joy in the journey, and celebrating your progress along the way. So what's one small step you can take today to move closer to your English-speaking goals? Maybe it's downloading a language learning app, finding a conversation partner, or simply committing to watching one video in English this week. Remember, every little bit counts. And as you start to see that progress, your confidence and motivation will grow. Until next time, keep practicing and keep those conversations flowing.
Thanks for watching this video from Simply English, an educational channel for all ages and all stages. If you're new to this channel and enjoyed this video, please subscribe and press the like button. If you have any suggestions, please mention them in the comments section. Take care, and goodbye.